I was born in Cape Breton, which is just across the bay here. We even have a McCaskill photograph of the area. Education was a very important part of the community, and a lot of the events centered around the community, around the church, the school and the church. Well, I lived there, but I went to school here in St. Peter's for during my high school years, and then went away to college, and then came back to teach eventually at the Lakeside School, which is in the neighboring community, and then I taught in St. Peter's, and then I went on to be superintendent of schools in Richmond County, and from there to be inspector of schools. Spent 10 years with the department, and the last couple of years I was inspector at large with special responsibilities for all over the province, actually. And then I retired and did some consulting work for a couple of years, and now I just do whatever volunteering comes along that I find interesting to do. I'm on the board of a number of different organizations. I'm on the board of Heritage Cape Breton Connection and the Nova Scotia Hearing and Speech Centres, and a number of other, the Antigonish Casket, and McCaskill House Museum. This is going back to the 1980s, and a number of people in the community used to refer to the fact that Wallace McCaskill, this was his home, his birthplace. The house had been sold it had gone from the McCaskill family to a Ferguson family. When their children grew up and moved away, nobody, was here in the house, and the Mrs. Ferguson lived here by herself for a number of years, and when she passed on, there was nobody in the house, and none of the family, I think, had very great interest in it. And so it was getting to be rather, run down. Even the municipality was getting concerned about it, and so thought it might have to be torn down. And one lady who is still living in this community and who was very much a part of the whole fabric of it was Mrs. Esther Campbell. Every once in a while she would call and she'd say, well, we have to do something, we have to do something. So we decided then that if anybody was going to do something, it may as well be us, get a group together and people who had an interest in McCaskill and McCaskill photographs. And so that's what we did. We put together actually it started out with a group of 4, and it has expanded. What we did first was we formed a McCaskill House Museum Company Limited in order to do this, to purchase it and to get everything cleared. Then we formed the McCaskill House Museum Society, in which we invited anybody who was interested to become a member of the society. And then we were eligible to go looking for some provincial and federal grant money. One of the workers on our grant was a researcher who wrote a lot of letters and made contact with some of Wallace McCaskill's relatives, and started gathering material and so on. So that was kind of the beginnings of it. Well, they've been acquired in a number of different ways. We have a loan agreement and a gift agreement that we had drawn up. And some people gave us pictures. They had McCaskills in their attics, or they were, they'd been in the family for a long time, and they said, well, we don't, we no longer want them, you can have them. We had some that were left to us in people's wills. We did do some fundraising, and we were able to purchase some. We've had a number of, for example, there's an antique dealer in New Glasgow by the name of John Marshall, and whenever he gets a McCaskill, he'll donate it. So we've had several that have been donated by him. About 6,000 of the negatives were turned over to the Nova Scotia Archives. So they've allowed us to go in and take a look through the archives and pick out any that we'd like to have, and they will print them for us. So that's basically how we've amassed the collection. Now, along with that, we had an interest in collecting some cameras, and people have been, when they find a camera in their attic or whatever, they pass them along to us. Now, people, as this has gone along, we're all across the country, who call us if they find something, or for example, we wanted a blue nose stamp, and a man in Niagara Falls found one, and he said, I'm sending you a blue nose stamp, and I mean, that's really a find. And the other thing about Wallace McCaskill that a lot of people don't know is that he was involved, studied photography in New York at a time when there was a lot of interest in crafts, arts and crafts. The arts and crafts movement, and he was a part of that. He grew up loving the water, and spent a lot of his time when he was a little guy playing in leaky boats around the shore, I guess. This remained a very great interest of his, which is why that so many of his best known photographs are of ships and the sea and so on, and you know, he's been called the world's foremost marine photographer. He had a yacht of his own called the Highlander, and it was designed by Rui, who designed the Blue Nose, but it was built by a boat builder from this area, from Mr. Clannon, from down past Lordways. He had a model made of the boat, which he gave to his best man at his wedding. This man called us and said, I was cleaning out my father's attic. My father has passed away, and I was cleaning out his house to sell it. And I came across this box with this boat. He said, some of it is apart, but it's all there. Would you like to have it? And we said, well, we certainly would. You never expect when you start something like this, the things that can come from it, or the interesting people that you can meet and so on. We're a member of the Iona Connection, and whenever possible, we try to attend the meetings, a couple of our board members. And at one point in time, I sat on the board, as I mentioned. We were very supportive of, as a group, the locator map. The big thing, I think, is being able to get together and sharing information, you know, and what other people are doing and so on. What I thought about the locator map was that it highlighted a number of, have you seen it, have you? Yes. Yeah, a number of places and attractions around the island that wouldn't normally don't get onto a provincial map, you know, the ones that are done by the Department of Tourism or whatever. And as a matter of fact, oftentimes there are roads left out off of those maps. And you know, there was one put out a couple of years ago, and there really was no way to get from St. Peter's to Sydney. Right. And that was I mean, those things do happen. We see a part of our role here as being kind of ambassadors for the area. So the girls who work here in the summertime always have all that information, and we make sure they know how far it is to the Dundee Golf Course, how far to Rita McNeil's, how far to the beach at Point Michaud, or whatever. And oftentimes people would ask questions. It would be very good to be able to take that map and say, well, this is where, you know, this is, and so on, the Lenmore Forge in Ayrshire, for example, or whatever. So it had more detail to it that was of interest to tourists, I think. And as a matter of fact, every time we showed the map, people would say, can I buy one of those? Can I have one of those? And we sold them, they bought the map. So the most important thing that we can do is marketing. Okay. And that's the thing that I think we all together, I mean, to say, you know, none of us individually has the resources to do the kind of marketing that we really need to do. But if we put and we work in cooperation, it always seems to me that anything that you do when you are working with others and you're cooperating and you send people from, you know, I think part of our success here is that we do work together well here in the county. And for example, if we have people here, we make sure they know about the other two museums and about the whatever else there is. In the end, we talk about Almadam and what there is over there to see and so on. When people go to Almadam, I know when Pauline Bona was at the L'Auberge Acadienne, she always used to send people to, frequently people would come over and they'd say we were at the Auberge and she told us to come here. And so the networking is really important. And if we don't work together, I mean, to say, you know, it's really one of the, you know, for example, this Heritage Coast includes Louisbourg to Point Upper and all in between, or Port Hastings rather, and all the way in between. And that's so important because people in Port Hastings don't identify with Louisbourg, you know, and I mean, there's the connection. You know, just the satisfaction of coming in here and seeing this house and thinking, you know, picturing what it looked like when we started. We have some photograph albums there that, and seeing it now. You know, the truth of the matter is, I don't think we considered anything to be a struggle. It was an opportunity. We looked at them as opportunities.